Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. And so with that, I do want to wrap on Kentucky. And yes, I know I'm talking about them again. I know it gets exhausting if you're not a Kentucky fan. But listen, as I've said many times, they are Michigan football of college basketball. Every week, I think I can put them in the rearview mirror. I think I can put it past us. I think I can stop talking about them. And then they do something either really good like last week against Florida or really bad like the two losses since to Alabama and Auburn. And you got to talk about them. And so let's get into Kentucky, where they did lose to Auburn. Final score was 66-59. But again, that's not really the story, right? I don't break down box scores. I break down the story behind the story. And the story behind the story is, I don't really know what John Calipari is doing, okay? And before we get into it, let me do the disclaimer. Two things can be true at the same time. Just talked about it with Tennessee. Just talked about it with everything that I talk about. Two things can be true at the same time. One, John Calipari is a freaking Hall of Famer. He's great at what he does. Like, let's stop with he's on the hot seat. Let's stop with he doesn't know what he's doing. No, he's awesome. He won the SEC last year. I believe he will win SEC championships in his future. But while it is true that he is a legend, it is true that he is great, it is also true that this is by far the worst coaching that I have ever seen from John Calipari. And I do understand to some degree why he would struggle in this season where there is COVID, where there are fewer practices, where there are no exhibitions, where there were none of those games early in the season to get things right. But when you watch that Auburn game on Saturday, a couple things stood out. First of all, he has just no idea how to play players together. The lineups were a mess. I mean, you at some points had three big guys. None of them can shoot on the floor at the same time. In college basketball in 2021, you cannot play like that. Just ask Baylor, who, as I just said a minute ago, has 4 of their top 5 scorers all shooting over 40% from three. Kentucky, meanwhile, is playing 3 big guys that can't shoot. You can't do that. But more important than anything else, and this is the frustration of Kentucky fans, and I know it because I tweeted about it and you guys responded in droves. The frustration is very simply this. John Calipari is not playing the players that help him win games. And it is so frustrating to watch, and it makes me pull my hair out. I'm not even a freaking Kentucky fan. So let's get into what happened at Auburn specific on Saturday, where there were 2 players I felt like who were largely helping Kentucky win the game early. One was Dante Allen, the kid that I've talked about again and again and again and again and again. 2019, Mr. Kentucky in the state of basketball. He is the kid who came off the bench, 23 points against Mississippi State, and essentially is Kentucky's only elite three-point shooter. He was awesome in the first half. Kentucky takes a lead, and what does John Calipari do? He sits him for 7 minutes to start the second half. Kentucky loses that lead. I believe they were still up by 1 when he entered the game. Apparently, Kentucky ran a few plays for him. He didn't shoot. Calipari pulls him again. And the rest of the game is a tug of war back and forth. Put him in, pull him out, put him in, pull him out, put him in, pull him out. Also, Jacob Toppin, Obi Toppin's brother, same kind of deal. Was awesome in the first half, played a little bit more in the second half. But the bottom line remains very simply this. John Calipari, this team is now 4-8 overall. And what remains insanely frustrating is not only does John Calipari has he not figured out his lineups, John Calipari isn't playing his best players. He's not playing the players that help him win, and I understand the frustration from Kentucky's fan base. And whether it's true or not, what it appears to be is what I have talked about on this show in the past and what I have talked about and what I tweeted about on Saturday. It appears as though he is giving preferential treatment to the players who appear to be higher on NBA draft boards than the backups and the role players and the guys who came to Kentucky as quote-unquote under-recruited, unheralded, etc. Specifically, and you guys know I hate to do this, but there is one kid who seems to continue to be playing when, frankly, there isn't a ton of reason to continue to play him. That is B.J. Boston. He is the 6'7 freshman from Sierra Canyon in L.A. I saw him play a ton in high school. He was awesome in high school, but he has been abysmal at Kentucky. And in a weird year where you're getting such little production from so few players, Calipari continues to bury these good players on the bench and continues to play guys like B.J. Boston going forward. And so, on the one hand, Like, I'll again defend Calipari. I get it. There's a lot of pressure. When you bring in these high-profile recruits, you got to play them, right? And you got to play them, and you not only got to play them, but you got to have success with them because that breeds the next opportunity to bring in the next 5-star and the next opportunity to bring in the next 5-star. And you get pressure from parents and AAU coaches and outside influences. Oh, you got to play them. Because if you don't get them to the NBA, if they're not lottery picks like they're projected, then it falls on you and you struggle to get that next guy. I get that. I get that pressure is real. What I would also say to that, and this is what I tweeted, and some Kentucky people in Kentucky basketball got mad at me for tweeting it, but it's the truth. John Calipari's job is not to develop NBA players. John Calipari's job is to win games at the University of Kentucky. And through the first 11 years of his regime, he has been able to win at the highest level while also producing NBA players. And it's been a great symbiotic thing, right? You just put out these elite NBA talents, and we know who they are. De'Aaron Fox, Jamal Murray, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Anthony Davis, Tyler Hero, P.J. Washington. But you win at the highest level as well. In Calipari's defense, most Final Fours, most Elite Eights, most NCAA tournament wins since he got to Kentucky. But the problem is this year it's not happening. And this year, the system, the formula of playing the elite players, developing them, and getting them to the next level is not working. And what is working is playing the guys who are not quote-unquote NBA prospects, who are not quote-unquote highly ranked, who were not McDonald's All-Americans, and it is frustrating the heck out of Kentucky fans. And so I don't want to say I don't know what the answer is, because the answer is very clearly you play the players who help you win. But I do think Calipari, to a degree, is at a crossroads this season specifically, because I do think that the system that he has implemented is simply not working. And I do think it's frustrating, and I do think it's fair to say, and I do think even as an outsider, I can see that he is not playing the players that help him win games. And the more frustrating part is he continues to make up these bogus, weird quotes to defend his actions. On Saturday, he said something about, I don't want to rip these kids' hearts out by not playing them. He was referencing B.J. Boston, the freshman who is not good enough right now. Well, guess what? You know what it's doing? It's doing two things. One, it's tearing apart the locker room. And two, it's actually doing nothing to help the actual player. First of all, in the terms of the tearing apart the locker room, the Jacob Toppin, the kid I just mentioned, Obi Toppin's brother, he said it after the game. He goes, we're not playing winning basketball right now. We're not playing team basketball right now. Everybody's doing their own thing. And I don't blame guys, because why would you not do your own thing? Because you know if you're having success but you're not the right player, you're going to get pulled anyway. And you know if you're the right player and you're not playing well, then you're not going to get pulled regardless. So that's one. Beyond that, I would also say Calipari, it's not doing anything to help the actual kid, in this case, B.J. Boston. One, all it does is put more pressure on him. Two, it makes it the expectation that no matter what he does, he can do no wrong and he will continue to play. And three, it's doing nothing to help his draft stock. You're trying to boost his draft stock, it's only making it worse. Sam Vecini from The Athletic, who I think is as good at the NBA draft stuff as anybody that I've ever seen, he basically said on Saturday, like, look, B.J. Boston's off my draft board. I want to take him in the top 40, and if he declares, yeah, he might go to the G League, but he's so small and so unproductive, so skinny and so unproductive, that he's going to get torn apart in the G League. So now you have a no-win scenario where the guys that are helping you produce aren't happy, nobody's happy in the locker room because the team isn't playing well, and the guys that you're trying to develop, they only have more pressure. And I don't blame B.J. Boston, because he is in a scenario where he's just trying to produce when he's in, but he is having too much put on his shoulders because Calipari continues to play him again and again and again and again and again. And so when I look at this season with Kentucky, I think two things. I think in the smaller picture, I hate to say it, but I think the season's kind of over, right? They're 4-8 right now. And you look at, by the way, their next three games are brutal. Their next three games might actually be the toughest three-game stretch they've had all year. Well, three of the next four, I should say. They play Georgia on Wednesday, but then they play LSU at home on Saturday. LSU's the second-best team in the SEC. Then they play Bama again at Bama, and then they play Texas, who's a top 5 team in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. So even if you beat Georgia, right, that brings you to 5-8. And then let's say in a best case scenario, in the stars align scenario, you go 2-1 over that 3-game stretch. That's LSU at Alabama, Texas at home. I don't think that's going to happen, but let's play that scenario. 2-1. After 5-8, that brings you to, what, 7-8 overall, if my math is correct? You still have 2 games with Tennessee after that. You still have a game with Florida. You still have a game with Arkansas. You still have a game with Auburn that just beat you. You still have a game with Missouri. So you're talking about coming out of that stretch, whatever, 7-8, and you still got, like I said, 2 with Tennessee, 1 with Arkansas, 1 with Auburn, 1 with Florida, plus an SEC tournament. I just don't know where the wins are going to be had. So I think in the smaller picture, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Auburn was the game you had to win. If you win that Auburn game, then you feel good against just about all the other teams in the SEC except maybe Alabama, maybe Tennessee. But now you lose that game, and it's just hard to see the scenario where you're going to pick up enough wins with the schedule you have left to actually make a real run. But I also think in the bigger picture, I think we're kind of at a crossroads for this moment in time with the Calipari era. And again, he's a Hall of Famer. I actually think he is going to be okay. First of all, enough with the hot seat, enough with the game has passed him by. I think he'll be fine, okay? I think he'll be fine. I think this is a weird year, and I think this year is harder than ever to build team chemistry and team camaraderie. And if you have a bunch of pieces that have never played together, it makes it even harder. But what I would also say beyond that is, I think we're at a crossroads here because I've said it before and I'll say it again. The system only works if your 5-star freshmen play like 5-star freshmen. And as time goes on and as fewer of these guys go to college and as the ones that do go to college go to different places, Cade Cunningham, Oklahoma State, Anthony Edwards, Georgia, some of them still go to Duke, some of them still go to Carolina, it's going to be harder to get those players. And so you have to develop players within your program, and you have to be willing, by the way, to play the kids that you might have thought are not elite. You got to play them, and you got to give them an opportunity. And when they perform, you got to keep playing them. And the one thing that's driven me crazy is I hear all this stuff about Dante Allen. Well, he's given the benefit of the doubt, and fans are only rooting for him because he's from Kentucky. No, screw that. They only root for him because he's the only one producing, and they want to win games. And it has nothing to do with him being from Kentucky. And if it was another player from another state who was doing what he did, they would still want him to play. And so with Calipari, I'm not going to do the whole, the game has passed him by, he's terrible. I still think he's a great coach, but I also think other things can be true as well. I think he's being stubborn, and I think as he gets older, it's getting harder for him to kind of realize that, I don't want to say the game is passing him by, but that he has to evolve with the times. And so I don't want to, I've said enough on Kentucky, and I've done 72 Kentucky segments since the start of the college basketball season. But like I said, it's just so frustrating to watch from a distance because you can see how, you can just see, a car crash coming and the guy driving, who in this case is John Calipari, can't see it, and it's just so frustrating.